Drew Brees was interviewing with Yahoo Finance. Drew, hey bro, little heads up. Maybe next time decline the Yahoo Finance interviews. I don't know if you were kind of talking about your penny stocks or if there was a silver, platinum, gold trading diatribe going on, but Yahoo Finance did you no favors. Now's not the time. Let's stick with the big boys. Let's not go digging for the Yahoo Finance interviews. So in between talking about Brazilian coffee investments and whatever else Drew Brees has going on, whatever his portfolio has, they asked Drew Brees, in the landscape we're in right now, in the climate we're in right now, they said, could you see in the upcoming NFL season protests like the Colin Kaepernick protest? Do you think people will be kneeling for the national anthem? Do you foresee that? And Brees, for some reason, decided to just go on this answer where he said, look, I will never support protesters protesting the national anthem, kneeling for the national anthem. My grandparents served in World War II, so I'm never going to be about that. Now, as you can imagine, this was not received very well at all. If anything, it was received really poorly. Drew Brees got flamed by every talking head on the media, his teammates, LeBron James. Everyone was gunning for Drew Brees. The city of New Orleans had a rally where they were chanting Drew Brees in the streets of Bourbon. On Bourbon Street, they're marching up and down chanting Drew Brees.
Drew Brees! Fuck Drew Brees! Fuck Drew Brees! Fuck Drew Brees!
And I never in a million years did I think we would see Drew Brees get exiled out of New Orleans by the citizens of New Orleans. Drew Brees got scarred out of Pride Rock from the very people who treat him as a deity, the very people who treat him as a god. I mean, this truly is the passion of Jesus Christ. And no one else is saying the passion of Jesus Christ. I'm trademarking that right now. That's how you know the kind of content that you're getting right here, is because, the passion of Jesus Christ just boom, off the dome like it's nothing. That's what you come here for, and I'm glad that I can deliver. But think about it, right? So Drew Brees says what he says. The reaction is cancel him, retire, destroy him. This is Drew Brees. This is a guy with the cleanest possible record. And I'm not talking about record as in, getting in trouble. I don't mean that. I mean the cleanest record as in being a leader in the community. A guy who has spent more money. A guy who, a month ago, donated $5 million to the people of New Orleans who needed it during this COVID crisis. No one's talking about that. This guy has completely enveloped himself in the community ever since the first day he got here, or got there after Katrina. He is, or has done more for the city of New Orleans than any person living, I would say. So Drew Brees' track record is immaculate when it comes to this. Obviously not a racist, obviously not a bad person. Do not tell the angry mob that. The angry mob just goes after him. Now, let's break this down first with Drew Brees' actual statement. So Drew Brees' statement, was it wrong? Irrelevant. It was stupid, it was insensitive, and the timing of when he said it couldn't have been any worse. If you have been listening to the podcast for a long time, or even know me personally, you know that my background's in PR and marketing. I can tell you from that background, if I was Drew Brees' PR or agent, or anything to do with him, or if this wasn't even Drew Brees, if this was just some other person and I'm doing their PR and I read the transcript from this interview, I'm packing my bags, I'm buying a plane ticket, and I'm getting the hell out of here because I know it's about to be a complete shitstorm. So what Drew Brees said deserved backlash and was bad. It was the timing so bad. Drew, read the room. I mean, there's a time and a place to say things, right? Saying something that is okay, saying something that's not inflammatory, can be inflammatory in the wrong crowd or at the wrong time. You ever heard the whole laugh at a funeral thing? It's okay to tell a joke. It's not okay to tell a joke at a funeral. You get what I'm saying? That the actual message is irrelevant sometimes because of when and how it's delivered. So that's important to remember. So Drew Brees does deserve some backlash. Drew Brees does deserve some, hey man, this was bad. This was dumb. Why'd you say this? He does deserve some of that. For sure. What is not deserved is this cancel culture, immediate elimination, immediate destruction, retire talk. That is where we really draw an issue with this. And that's where a lot of this conversation is going to lead. So the whole point of Colin Kaepernick's protest, the whole point of the current protest, the whole point of any protest is to start a conversation, correct? The actual symbol of Colin Kaepernick kneeling down, the actual symbol of people protesting on a bus or in a classroom or whatever it may be, that actual symbol does not change anything. Nothing whatsoever. What changes, or what brings about change, is the conversation that is then brought forth from that symbol. That's the whole point of a protest. You kneel for the national anthem. People are uncomfortable. People start talking about it. People bring it up. It brings a spotlight on the whole thing. Then you have a conversation about it because you're forced to. It's in your face. You have to talk about it. So then you talk about it. And then change happens. That's what you do. That's what should have happened here with Drew Brees. Drew Brees made a mistake. He said something insensitive. We agree on that. Okay, what's the next step? The next step is to educate Drew Brees, talk to Drew Brees, explain why I was insensitive. Then Drew Brees thinks about it and goes, oh, well, I guess that does make sense. Okay, I now know. I now have learned. Thank you for educating me. I now will change. Like, what I'm thinking has changed. You have successfully impacted me. You have successfully impacted me. The protest worked. The conversation worked. The discourse worked. That's it on a micro level. You do that on a big level, that's how real change happens. My problem with this is the second that actual change could have happened, every single person declined it. Every single person declined what they should have done and instead went for the easy route, which was the cancel culture, the cancel destruction, the retire. Asking Drew Brees to retire from the game of football because he said that he didn't agree with the protest is ridiculous. And the worst part is, it's the exact same thing that people hated whenever Colin Kaepernick got thrown out of the NFL, and a lot of people believe it was because of his protest, him kneeling for the anthem. Now, when it happened, I said, I don't agree with Colin Kaepernick on a lot of things. I don't think Colin Kaepernick is Malcolm X. I don't think he's Martin Luther King Jr. I do support protests. I do support spotlighting police brutality, social injustice. I'm with you there. I wasn't with Colin Kaepernick on the pig socks. I wasn't with Colin Kaepernick when he's talking about Fidel Castro. He got a little lost in the sauce. But when, Colin Kaepernick did his protest and he got blackballed from the NFL. Now, was it because of his play? Was it because of the protest? Different video, different day. But a lot of people are saying, look, man, whether you agree or disagree, you can't fire somebody. You can't push someone out of the league because of their beliefs or because of an idea or because of something they say. Like, that's what makes America America. And that's true. That is what makes America America. America is America because you should not be afraid to say what you believe, what you are thinking. Now, you say that, and then it's also America because the people who disagree shouldn't be afraid to call you out on it and start that discourse. That's it. That's the beauty of this whole thing. And his teammates and the media all failed at it. And it's really disappointing for the media because the media know Drew Brees. They're the ones that cover Drew Brees. They're the ones who had the platform to speak about Drew Brees and to educate the masses and to really drive this point home. And they had the time to research and they had the time to dig into it and they had the time to really go after it. And what do? They crowdsource the reactions from social media. They go on Twitter and Instagram and they look at the comments and they see the angry mob and they conform and say, oh, well, if 50,000 comments, or really an infinite number of comments, because you can't see all of them, so if an infinite number of comments all say Drew Brees is a racist, Drew Brees must be a racist. All these people are calling for him to retire, he needs to retire. And then they go sit on Fox Sports or ESPN and they scream for him to retire. What they should do, and what I'm doing, is they should take a step back and realize exactly what's going on and they should offer a proper explanation and a proper a conversation starter about what the proper steps were. They shouldn't incite the mob. They should tell the mob, like, this isn't going to change anything. This isn't the way to act. What is Drew Brees retiring going to do? What is Drew Brees retiring actually going to solve? That's the problem. But they didn't do that. Every single one of them was shocked, disgusted, disappointed, whatever at Drew Brees, canceling Drew Brees. I'm here to tell you that if you're one of those people, and I don't care who's watching this or who's listening to this, if you're one of the people who said Drew Brees should retire, or Drew Brees should quit, or Drew Brees should be canceled, eliminate Drew Brees, he's a racist. If that was your reaction to Drew Brees' comments, you are part of the problem. And you are the reason that the society right now is so stagnant and that there is no change. Because I don't even think you want change. If you're one of those people, you are more worried about the instant gratification of canceling someone or, destroying someone's career or livelihood or whatever. You're more worried about that moment right there. And you're clout chasing, and you know you're clout chasing. His teammates are the biggest clout chasers of them all. They have a direct connection to Drew Brees. They can go right to him. They can text him, call him. They share a locker room with him. He's their coworker, really, if you think about it. We're not professional athletes, so your coworker that you've been working with for years, if you have a problem with them, you have a direct connection to them. And what do these guys do? Instead of using their time and using their platforms to educate Drew Brees and to educate the masses, they go straight to Twitter and Instagram. And they start subtweeting Drew Brees or posting all these crazy tweets or Instagrams, or you're Malcolm Jenkins and you post some video telling Drew Brees to shut the fuck up, and nothing changes. So Drew Brees is stuck with the same ideals and the same thoughts, but he's getting lambasted for them. So what does he do? The same thing anyone would do. Offer some lame-ass apology that is completely unfounded because he obviously hasn't changed. He's the same guy. He's the exact same person. You think he's going to change in 24 hours? No, he's just saying whatever you want him to say so that you'll quit asking for him to retire. And then what do? Then we see people start walking back the hate. You start seeing the Michael Thomases and the Alvin Kamaras and whoever start saying, like, Drew Brees posts his apology. I'm surprised the image he used didn't have Shutterstock watermarked over the front of it or Getty Images over the front. It was the most stereotypical. It was a black arm and a white arm clasped together, and it said, he basically just repeated what everyone was screaming at him. And everyone says, oh, well, okay, Drew Brees has apologized. Drew Brees is good to go, whatever. Then Drew Brees triple downs. I mean, he starts overcompensating. Then he writes an essay to Trump about how the Kaepernick protests were never about the flag and never about the national anthem, and they were really about police, brutality and social injustice. Drew, there's a pandemic happening. Okay, it's an election year. All hell is breaking loose. There's a civil war in the streets. Buildings are on fire. Police departments are being defunded. It's a war right now. And you're going to take this time to get you on your megaphone and yell at Trump for a 5-year-old protest because now you've had an awakening and you realize what it was really about? It makes Drew Brees somehow look even worse because now he's pissed off everybody. And then you go to the flip-flopping teammates and they're all quote tweeting Drew Brees' letter to Trump. And they're like, oh, this is my quarterback. This is my guy. I'd ride or die for this guy. This is my dude. I'd never sell him out. You just sold him out 24 hours ago. Your next earliest tweet, your tweet went from telling him to retire to saying that's my guy. Let's strip it all the way down, right? Let's say you're in your office and as you and 10 other people work there, and your supervisor or your boss or whatever comes down and says, we're painting this office. Y'all figure out what colors you want. And 9 of your coworkers say, I want blue. And you say, well, I want orange. And instead of y'all talking about it, your coworkers start sending emails to your boss saying he's toxic. He won't listen. He's hard-headed. We think he's colorblind maybe. I think he's an alcoholic. They just start destroying you. They start saying, we're not working unless he quits. We want him out of the office. And you're like, man, what the hell is going on? So then you tell them, like, look, guys, I didn't realize this was, I was not looking at this how y'all are. I was totally blind to this. I was very naive to the situation. I'll listen to what y'all have to say, and we can paint the walls blue. We can paint the walls the color y'all want. And then you start seeing them sending emails to the boss saying, you know what? This is my coworker. This is the kind of guy I want in the foxhole with me. This is the kind of guy who I want to work with. I would do anything for this guy now that he wants these walls blue. That's my boy. If it was me, I'd be like, what the hell is going on? What is this? What the hell has happened? You talk about have no clue what's actually happening. Is because that flip-flopping cancel culture, point the cancel gun at you and say, hey man, unless you say what I want you to say, you're done. You're over with. That is oppression at the highest degree. The absolute highest degree. I saw someone on Twitter saying that they will not accept Drew Brees' apology until he kneels for the flag during the national anthem. That is disgusting. That is like movie villain 101. If the opening scene of a movie starts with a villain enforcing their ideals on somebody and forcing them to do what they don't want to do or what they don't believe in, that guy's the villain. The movie is found out. That's a really good way to know who the bad guys are and the good guys are. Look, I'm a Catholic, okay? And I'm not saying that Catholicism is the correct way or the right way. It's just what I am. It's just what I believe in. If you're Buddhist, if you're Methodist, if you're Jewish, I don't care. Believe in what you want to believe in. Who knows what's right? Who knows what's wrong? Okay? But let's say I'm Catholic and I meet a Buddhist. And I tell the Buddhist, look, man, I'm not going to trust you until you denounce Buddhism and you come take Holy Communion over here. I would sound insane. I would sound like the most evil person in the world. That is crazy. I mean, that is bananas to even be in that mind frame of the only way I'm ever going to accept Drew Brees' apology is to watch him kneel for the national anthem that he just told you he holds very dearly. That's evil. It really is evil. And that just puts into perspective the types of people we have out there right now. We have people who really want change. We have people who really want, a free society or a better society or just kind of a better society to live in. We actually do have that. And then we actually do have other people who are the exact kind of evil they are trying to rid themselves of. I mean, when I read it, I could not believe it. I really couldn't. And, the Drew Brees thing, people miss the point, I think, because then you hear people who will say, well, I agree with Drew Brees. I like the flag. And that's the exact kind of people who need to be educated on this scenario. People who are like, well, I respect the military. So, yeah, I do too. I'm with you. I'm with you, but that's not it. That's not what was going on. That's not what the protest was about. The protest was about using that time that a lot of people hold dearly to get a shock reaction and then to use that to spotlight police brutality. So it's not about Kaepernick versus the military. This isn't like the third Captain America movie where Captain America is fighting Colin Kaepernick in the 49ers. That's not what we're doing here. And that old rhetoric, that 5-year answer that Brees gave, maybe he was ignorant. Maybe he was naive to the actual situation. And he probably was. Because it's obvious that Drew Brees isn't like some flaming racist. So he really may have been confused on the whole thing. And, the military thing, such a lazy answer because, Brees says, well, I have 2 grandparents serving in World War II. It's like, well, what does that have to do with anything, Drew? On one hand, the protesters probably have grandparents who served in World War II. The World War II wasn't just an army of white guys. There was white, minority, all creed and color serving in the military in World War II. And when they came back from World War II, it was a very different America for those soldiers. White soldiers came back to parades and being a hero and white picket fences, and African American and minority soldiers came back to segregation. So both are patriots. both love America, both sacrifice their lives for this country, and both honor the flag, but that flag and that country are very different, or mean very different for those soldiers. So that has, on one hand, that has nothing to do with anything. Then separately, it's Drew Brees saying like, hey, I know y'all's, police brutality and social injustice. I know that's a big deal, right? It's not big enough of a deal to disrespect my grandparents, though, you son of a bitch. That's what it sounds like on the other hand. And that's where I think the conversation should have happened with whoever, Malcolm Jenkins, I guess, and say, look, Drew, like this is why it's insensitive. This is coming from my end. The last podcast, we talked about how right now is a good time for non-minority to listen, because it's impossible to really know what they go through, what they went through, what life's like, unless you're that person. So this is a great time to listen and have that discourse. And that's exactly what Drew Brees should do. But you can't do that if the people are not willing to have the conversation. If they're so caught up in it that all they want to do is destroy, and all they want to do is cancel and end and force their ideals on people, that will never work in anything, whether it's social injustices or police brutality or whatever the cause is. Nothing will change if you go about it like that. And to see not just the mob, not just this like angry mob that forms on Twitter and Instagram, to see them just not do it there, but then to see all these talking heads do it and all the media do it, it's just gone way too far. I mean, it's like that with the whole protest. I saw in a protest or on Twitter or whatever that white people were apologizing, and they were apologizing by crawling on their hands and knees and like kissing the feet and bowing down to like this group of African Americans. And that to me is where you start to really push through and miss the point of the whole protest. That's not doing anything. That's this weird mixture of bad. That's not changing anything at all. Forcing Drew Brees to kneel for the flag or whatever is not what we want here. It should be simple. It should just be a simple education. And his teammates really should be ashamed of themselves. I mean, like Malcolm Jenkins, I had read that he talked to Drew Brees and then uploaded the video. Why? Why would you talk to Drew Brees? You have the chance to make the change. And instead of doing that, you go back to your house and make some video telling Drew Brees to shut the fuck up.
Drew, where is the place, Drew? I'm disappointed.
What is that going to solve? You just talked to him. You just had the opportunity to change things. You just had the opportunity to make things better and to be the man that helped Drew Brees kind of learn what was going on. But instead, you talk to him, turn around, and go make a video scathing him. Like, if you're Drew Brees, think about that. Like Malcolm Jenkins, you just had a conversation. Oh, Malcolm made a video on Twitter. Let's see what it is. Maybe he's talking about the conversation we just had. Oh, nope. He's screaming at me. I have made a huge mistake. Let me get my Shutterstock account up. I need to find a picture of a black hand and a white hand ASAP. It's so bad. And it's not the America we should live in. Guys, look, I promise you that this cancel culture reaction, the only thing it's good for is keeping everything exactly how it is. It's not good for anything else. Canceling anybody who doesn't share your ideals is the foundation for oppression, is the foundation for injustice. Whether it's white, black, Asian, animals, whatever. Anything, any color, any creed, any species. I don't care if it's aliens. If you impose your ideals on a group and you treat them where it's either, hey man, conform or else, that's really bad and also really dangerous. So it's one of those things where it started off being something with Drew Brees and that whole situation, and it quickly turned into something totally different. And I hate that it moved that way because they took a really good cause and they completely destroyed it. So hopefully, I think Drew Brees is neutered. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to be able to be a leader in that locker room again. And I don't blame him for not trusting his teammates. And I don't think his teammates trust him. So it's a really sticky situation in New Orleans. And it's just a terrible probably last year for an incredible career and somebody who has done everything for that city. So it's really tough to see, and it's unfair to everyone really involved that the angry mob somehow got their voice, heard at this level. It really is. So, but that's my thoughts on it. And the Drew Brees situation is something that, especially down here in the South and this close to New Orleans, where it's been the talk of the town, and it's just gotten so ugly for a guy who should be held in such esteem for what he's done for that community.